Hello and welcome to my channel. It's always a pleasure to have you on this channel. In this edition of Fear and the Law, I'm discussing the legal issues surrounding the Anambra election, the build up to the election proper, and after the election there are many legal issues. You know very well that every election is an issue of law, and there are many legal issues, woven around any election. In this edition of Fear and the Law, I'm discussing a few of these legal issues as regards the election in Anambra State. Now, the first question here is, what is the volume of votes that must be attained by a candidate before the candidate can be declared as a winner of the Anambra election? Now, this is an issue of law. This question revolves around law completely. And this takes us to section 179 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which provides two basic criteria before someone can be declared the winner of the governorship election in Anambra State. The first criteria is that the person to be declared the winner must have majority of the lawful votes cast at the election. Majority of the lawful votes cast at the election. The second criteria is that in addition to having majority of the lawful votes cast, there must be evidence to show that the candidate has won election in not less than 2/3 of the total number of local governments in the states. Okay? Anambra has 21 local government areas. 2/3 of 21 is 14. Okay, so there must be evidence to show that aside having the majority of lawful votes cast at the election, the person to be declared the winner of that election has also won election in not less than 2/3 of the total number of local governments in Anambra State. In this case, not less than 14 local government areas in Anambra State. Okay, these are the basic criteria provided in the Constitution before someone can be declared as the winner of a gubernatorial election. Now, a few years back, INEC introduced another criteria, and that criteria is certainly going to play out in Anambra State also. In the guidelines that have been provided over time by INEC as regards election, INEC has introduced something called margin of lead, and that means that in addition to satisfying these two requirements of law of the Constitution that I have just described, the candidates should also be able to cross the margin of lead principle. And what's the margin of lead principle? Margin of lead simply means that the margin of lead by the candidates should not be should not be below the total number of cancelled votes. I explain that. If, for instance, a total of 10,000 votes have been cancelled, and the margin of lead by the number one candidate in that election is 9,500, it means that the margin of lead is lower than the total number of cancelled votes. In that circumstance, INEC would require that a by-election be conducted in the area where the votes have been cancelled so as to have a clear winner in the election. Now, you would recall that this same margin of lead principle was applied in Osun State when Adeleke and the current governor of Osun State were standing election as candidates of their respective political parties. Adeleke was leading at the end of the day, but shortly before the announcement, it was discovered that the margin of lead on the side of Adeleke was lower than the total number of votes that were cancelled in various parts of the state. For that reason, the announcement was withheld so as to be able to go back, fix a date, go back to those areas and then have election conducted to get a clear winner. At the end of the day, it was the current governor of Osun State that was declared the winner of that election. So you can now see that there are now three criteria that must be satisfied before someone can be declared the winner of a governorship election in Nigeria. One is you must have the majority of total number of votes cast at the election. You must also satisfy the requirement of having one election in many local governments in the state. You must also satisfy the margin of lead. Margin of lead, I must say, is not in the constitution, but it has been interpreted upon by the Supreme Court to the effect that it has now become part of the electoral system in Nigeria. Now, the other question is, what happens if there is no election in Anambra State? And this is a very critical question, going by the build-up to the election, going by the events that have characterized the build-up to this election. Also going by the fact that IPOB has threatened that nobody should go out on the day of election. IPOB has said that there will be no election in Anambra State. A lot of things that have happened prior to the election, are such that some people are skeptical whether there is going to be election in Anambra State. For me, there should be election in Anambra State. I believe so much in democracy. I believe so much in people being given the opportunity to elect the leaders of their choice. Okay, so for me, there should be election in Anambra State. But what if there is no election? The answer to this is that if there is no election in Anambra State, it therefore means that there will be constitutional crisis in that state. What do I mean? There will be no governor anymore in Anambra State, and there will be no deputy governor anymore in the states. Why? Because the Constitution has not contemplated any extension of tenure for the governor of any state. Once you serve out your tenure, you are expected to go. You leave the seat of power and go home. So there is no provision in the Constitution for extension of time for anybody to continue staying in office as governor because of an eventuality, because there was no election, or so on or so forth. So there will be that constitutional crisis in Anambra State if there is no election. Anambra is not going to have governor anymore. Anambra is not going to have deputy governor anymore. So the seat of power is going to be vacant if there is no election. But what happens in that situation? I'm sure this is a question a lot of people will be asking. What happens in a situation where there is no governor, where there is no deputy governor? The law appears to have contemplated this kind of situation when in section 191 of the Constitution provides that where there is no governor, where there is no deputy governor, the Speaker of the House of Assembly steps in as acting governor, for the time being. But for how long should the Speaker stay in acting capacity as governor? The law says only for 90 days. When the 90 days is over, is there any room for extension? No, there is no room for extension. The Constitution has not provided for extension of the 90 days within which the Speaker is to act in acting capacity as the governor of the state. So, if there is no election in Anambra State, the Speaker of the House of Assembly will be expected to fill in the gap that will be left behind by Governor Obiano and his deputy. So the Speaker is only going to act for 90 days by virtue of section 191 sub 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, you can see that there is no room for extension of that time for the Speaker. And so the crisis, the constitutional crisis in the states will still be there even after the 90 days. Now, the 90 days is expected to be acted upon by the Speaker for there to be election, for there to be an opportunity for someone to be elected into the office of governor, for him to for him to serve as a substantive governor of the state. So after 90 days, there is nothing in the Constitution that allows for extension of time. I'm sure this is not the best of, this is not what should happen. This is not what the people of Anambra State would ever expect should happen to them. They will never expect that there should be constitutional crisis in Anambra State. And I do hope that going by these provisions of the law, the people of Anambra State will go out there peacefully, cast their votes to ensure that a candidate of their choice is elected as the governor of the state, to avoid these issues of law playing out in the state. That's the much that this edition of Beyond the Law can accommodate. I do hope you have learned one or two things about the principles of law in Nigeria, and I do hope also that the election in Anambra State is going to be peaceful. I do hope that you subscribe to this channel from time to time. We'll send you notification if you have subscribed. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ekemi Nudim. I'm a legal practitioner, and I'm always glad to know that you are there keeping me company on this channel.